the yield curve inverted back in July. And so we know that generally when the yield curve inverts, it doesn't even matter if the audience knows what that means or not, except that it is our best recession indicator. It's helped to predict the 7 prior recessions that we've had. So knowing that we likely have a recession coming up in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 2 years, it doesn't matter what the time frame is. It's really just a hedge against that.
Isn't part of that, Jonathan, where the long-term interest rates do the reverse that they're expected to do, that long-term interest rates get to be worse than the short-term? Is that right?
Exactly. So when the yield curve inverts, it just means that usually, like if you just think about if Gary, if you loan Quentin money and you loan Quentin that money and you're like, you can pay me back in a year, you're going to want a higher interest rate than if you loan Quentin some money and he's going to pay you back in a week. If he's going to pay you back in a week, you're probably like, don't even worry about any interest. That's crazy. I don't care. If it's a year though, you're like, okay, I could have put that money to work. I could have had it in my savings account. I could have earned some interest on it.
Exactly.
So you got to give me some interest. So when you're charging Quentin more to loan him money for a week than you are for a year, that's called an inversion in the yield curve.
Yeah.
So that's what we saw back in July, is that the U.S. government, was willing, we were paying more on short-term debt than long-term debt. And I can explain all the economic geekery behind why that happens in an economy. It doesn't even matter, though. You should just know that that's a signal to the world that there's economic disruption coming in the future. And generally, we know it's like a 6 to 18 month window after we see that first inversion. And that happened back in July of this year for the first time.